I'm Rebecca Kiesow-Knudsen. I'm the president and CEO of Lutheran Social Services of South Dakota.
And how long have you been with LSS?
Well, I've been with LSS for 20 years and in my current role now for just about 3 months.
Okay. And what have been your roles otherwise at LSS?
Well, I started in 2001 with our school-based mentoring program back when LSS first started the work with the Sioux Falls School District. Did that for a while and then got engaged in some more sort of administrative tasks like our accreditation, our quality improvement processes. Then I transitioned into the Vice President of Community Service in 2011. Spent 10 years doing that, then transitioned to COO for about 9 months and then into my current role. So we're a statewide social ministry organization. We have 15 different service lines to reach out really to South Dakotans from birth all the way through death. We offer a real wide array of services that touch people at different points in their lives. So everything from behavioral health care to psychiatric residential treatment centers for youth, foster care, adoption, mentoring services, child care, a whole laundry list of ways that we impact South Dakotans. You know, some of the things we've encountered, I think for me, one of the biggest moments was way back at the start of the pandemic in March of 2020 when there was so little information about what was happening. We didn't know much about COVID-19. We didn't know how to protect ourselves from COVID-19. There were a lot of rumors going around, and we had the outbreak at Smithfield Foods. And obviously, a lot of the clients that we work with at our Center for New Americans who are either refugees or immigrants are also employed at Smithfield. And so we felt called at that time to help with some response that Smithfield needed just in terms of education of their employees. And then we have a great partnership with Avera. And Avera, of course, was tasked with that initial testing response. And Avera reached out to us and said, we need help. We need help with language interpretation. We need to help people feel calm and understand what quarantine expectations were and really how to move through those early days when things were so unclear. There was a great deal of fear in the community at the time because we just didn't know what we were dealing with. And I think as I've reflected on the last 2 years, our team at the Center for New Americans, despite all the risk to themselves from a personal health standpoint, they stepped up to the plate. They were out in the testing lines interpreting for the individuals who are trying to interact with the clients who are coming through. They were on the phone lines communicating with family members about expectations. All of this at great risk to themselves, but they did it because of our mission, because of our calling to be there for people in times of need. And it was a real moment of pride for me, and it really crystallized those community partnerships that are so important for us that you build over years. And then a crisis like this happens, and you can call on those relationships to respond in community. And then shortly after that, we became aware that a lot of the families who are having to isolate or quarantine as a result of exposure or sickness weren't getting access to food, in part because some of the food drop-offs and lines that were available then were not the types of foods that our client populations are familiar with. And so our team mobilized and we're putting food packs together and delivering those out to our clients and individuals who are impacted. We're not a feeding ministry. That's not what we normally do, but it was a need in the community. And our team did such an amazing job of figuring out how to do it, and then deploying out into the community. Well, we work with refugees and immigrant populations, and South Dakota is blessed by a richness of those populations. So we work with a lot of Bhutanese, Burmese, there aren't as many Karen here in Sioux Falls, but Congolese populations, and then our immigrant communities, which tend to be Spanish-speaking from various Latin American countries. And our team has great language abilities in all of those different areas, so we were able to deploy and then also make people feel at ease by speaking their native language. You know, personally, like for all of us, being isolated from family members in particular was very challenging, not able to see my parents, my in-laws, out of protection for them, not wanting to potentially expose them. But it was a good period of time where we were really isolated, as a family in our home, and not able to see loved ones, not able to attend worship in person. All of those things, I think, were a challenge for us as a family, for me personally, having to do school at home while also trying to work at home like all of us were doing in those early days. Those I think, were some of the biggest challenges. I think about the flip side of that, for our family, and I have 4 kids, we were together all the time. So it was an opportunity for us to strengthen our relationships within our family and really become a cohesive unit. And I saw those positives come out of it as well. I think for me, the pandemic, it was such a great example of Christ's ministry to those who are the least fortunate. Because what we saw throughout the course of the pandemic was that people were disproportionately impacted by this. If you were a direct line worker, you worked at Smithfield, or you were in the direct lines in the hospitals, or you're in childcare, you couldn't stay in your home and isolate. You were exposed to risk, and higher levels of risk than other parts of the population. And then knowledge and information and awareness about vaccines and those kinds of things were also hard. That's hard information to get out to populations whose primary language isn't English. So I always tried to keep that in mind, especially during those harder moments, for me personally or for our family as a whole, that really we were pretty well off in all of this, and that inspiration to just keep going and follow in Christ's footsteps to reach out to those who are less fortunate.